Hello there. Do you believe in freedom of speech? Do you think it's a good idea to allow a violent pro-terrorist mob to kick out anyone from their own neighborhood on the pretext that their presence there incites the said mob into more violence? Because it seems to be a theme. I remember seeing it when Tommy Robinson was in Britain. I remember seeing it with Lawrence Southern. I remember seeing all sorts of figures on the right have this treatment, and it seems as though now in Canada we have a repeat. Let's listen.
And new pro-Palestinian protests in Canada. And now a Jewish journalist is arrested at a pro-Hamas rally in his own neighborhood that's in Toronto. Here's how it happened.
I think you're a coward also.
You can have your opinion.
You'll do what they say.
Stand over.
It's the path of least resistance.
No, I'm trying to keep the peace.
No, you're not.
You're refusing to leave?
I'm refusing to leave.
Why?
Because I'm a Jew, I'm a citizen, and I'm your boss. And I don't leave because you say Jews aren't
Well, you know
allowed
what?
on the street.
In the interest of keeping peace here and public safety, you're under arrest for breach of the peace. Take a minute.
Good.
Ezra.
Notice the protesters are cheering when the person who's not violent, but rather his presence there might incite them to violence, is arrested. They see this as the capitulation of your society to their show of force. They in Fox News didn't bother showing you, but you can go to Ezra Levant's Twitter and you can see the entire 10-minute video. And the police officer specifically says that the threat to the peace is the pro-Hamas protesters becoming violent due to the presence. He's not talking to them. He's not trying to involve himself with them. He's just filming them. He's filming what they're doing, and while being Jewish on the street of a Jewish neighborhood, meaning it's a neighborhood where the majority of the occupants are Jewish. Hamas went to such a neighborhood in order to protest there specifically, and got someone arrested by threatening violence upon him. They see this as you breaking your Western democratic norms due to their show of force. They see this as a victory for their colonization of your country. Even if you absolutely despise Jews in Israel, that might not be a good thing. Just pointing it out.
Levant is the publisher of Rebel News. He joins us now. I saw this happening yesterday. I haven't heard from you directly as to how you saw it, but I sent a text around saying, what in the world is happening? So can you tell us, what was it like there at the moment in your own neighborhood?
Sure, it was a residential neighborhood, so there's no Israeli consulate or any political target there. They were going after Jews. So the Hamas activists came right in the heart of this residential neighborhood. They actually set up some grotesque display, sort of reenacting Yahya Sinwar, that's the Hamas leader. So I wanted to take a photograph of it because I'm with a news outlet. I went there very low key, didn't.
Just to point it out, the specific Hamas leader that they are talking about, I believe he is the author of the October 7th attack, massacre. So maybe the guys who are for the butchering of over 1,000 civilians in cold blood and also filming it and posting it to social media, maybe these are not the good guys. I mean, one of the reasons that we have such a united front against pretty much any criticism of what's going on in Israel right now is that the people murdered back then were mostly leftists. They were mostly very, pro-peace, pro-human rights type of people who often went and volunteered from themselves to help the suffering people in Gaza. And incidentally, that's why some of the people that attacked knew specifically where the Israeli people lived, because they used to bring people over and host them and help them, and well, they were repaid with utmost violence. So this is sort of what unified the right and the left around the idea that there's no one to talk to and that the only language the other side understands is force. And now you have protesters celebrating it in Canada. Supposing that they manage to get rid of all the Jews, what do you think they'd do? Do you think they'd settle down and be peaceful, part of your society? Or do you think you'd be next until, all that's left is Muslims? Food for thought.
Didn't actually talk to anyone, just went to take a picture. Some of the pro-Hamas radicals recognized me and started shouting at me. That's fine, I believe in free speech actually, but the police came up to me and said, you have to leave the public sidewalk now. You're not allowed to be here because these Hamas activists are disturbed by your presence. I said, well, that's just because I'm Jewish. I have the right to be here and do journalism. The cop said, your very presence here is offending these Hamas activists. Leave now or I'm going to arrest you. And I said, I'm not leaving. A Jew can walk on the streets. By the way, I think of myself as a Canadian first, and I was there as a journalist, but both the cops and Hamas said, Jews on this side of the street are an illegal disturbance. I was arrested, searched, handcuffed, and taken to jail. Now, they later released me without charge, but they've done this 5 times to one of our other journalists who, by the way, isn't even Jewish. He was just asking tough questions of the Hamas side. In Canada, the police take the path of least resistance, which is don't upset the Hamas mobs, crack down on anyone who points a camera at them or asks a tough question.
Now, this is not just in Canada. Try the same in Germany, in Britain, in France, essentially in most Western countries. I believe even in, very democratic cities in the US, you might find the same. This is something that we absolutely cannot allow because it is breaking down the democratic norms in our society. We have the idea that we do not use violence to solve our differences. That's what the ballot box is for, right? We vote and then we have a government by the wishes of the majority with some protections for the minority. You don't get to impose your will through threats of violence. That is not allowed, and if you try it, the cops are supposed to arrest you. Instead, they will arrest your opponents now, because your presence is, sort of a red rag in front of a bull or something. Causing them to become violent. So the best way is just to kick you out. And if you refuse, they will arrest you. And then in that way, we have the least amount of, violence occurring. Except what happens to our norms? What happens to our traditions? What happens to our laws? What happens to our morals? Well, they're all gone, essentially. People will know that the most violent mob is the one that will rule, and their opponents are going to be taken by the police and moved away. You win the day by having a threat of force on your side. That's no longer a democracy. The thing is, this is something that we import from the third world at a rapid pace, against the wishes of the majority. If you look in pretty much every single Western society today, and for decades prior, we have had the majority desire less migration, not more. The thing is, people do not want to see their entire neighborhood, in their entire town or city, upended in a number of years by the arrival of, let's say, an additional 50-60% of the population that are migrants, because there is a very large difficulty in integrating them. What you'll have essentially is, instead of integration, colonizations. You'll have colonies of people based on where they're from, and they will not learn the language, they will not assimilate. Here is proof. Almost half of Vienna's first graders are unable to speak German. This is from 2 days ago. A shocking 44.6% of first graders in public elementary schools in Vienna lack the necessary German language skills to follow the lessons. Austrian Daily, The Standard, has revealed this number is astounding in itself, but it's even more shocking when considering that only 2 years ago the figure was 36%. So it increased by 9.5% within 2 years. How long until you become an absolute minority in your own country? And do you think your country would still be a democracy, a Western-style democracy, once you are the minority? No way. No way at all. the entire human rights thing is going to disappear like snow melting in the heat of the sun the moment that the Westerners are no longer the majority. The moment you get a government comprised of immigrants from countries where democratic norms do not exist and where the largest and most powerful group rules with an iron fist over all minorities, you will feel what it's like to be a minority in your own country. It's not going to be pleasant, you know? Here in Israel, we have this sort of general consciousness that we absolutely must maintain a Jewish majority in the country. And it is born from us being taught in school the history of our people, being a minority in many countries, being kicked around and having laws decreed against us. For example, Jews became mostly merchants and bankers in the UK, right, in England, because it was illegal for them to pursue most trades. I wonder what you will and will not be allowed to do in your own country once you become a minority. Check out the number of churches being burned and destroyed in recent years in your home country. If you are in any Christian Western country, you'd be very surprised. It doesn't reach the newspaper, but the numbers are alarming. I can't help but feel as though we need a great push for a shared consciousness of nativists and nationalists, not for people who hate others, but for people who care about their own and who want to maintain the tradition and the people, the sort of national identity that existed for hundreds and sometimes thousands of years in their homeland. And we need an alliance between such groups in different nations against this global push for what they claim is multiculturalism, but you'll notice that nobody's pushing for China to become less Chinese, and nobody's pushing for Egypt to become less Egyptian, or Syria or Jordan or any of the sort. They want to do it to Western countries, and I think Japan and South Korea as well, maybe. They want to do it to the most technologically advanced and economically powerful countries that tend to pursue democracy and equality under the law. I think that they are perfectly fine with a country that is more tyrannical, monarchical, and has less power to oppose the, how to put it, the forcing of behaviors, let's say, by the rich and powerful globally. In my opinion, people like Bukele or Donald Trump, Viktor Orban, these people, these leaders are definitely the kind of political change that we need. Beforehand, Javier Milei, another example, beforehand, what you had is Team Red and Team Blue. It doesn't matter which one is in power, they're just swarming the chair. Regardless, you will see a continuation of the policies. I guess Team Red was just moving slightly slower, right? Reducing the rate of change. But it was not changing the trajectory. It wasn't even stopping, you know, the change. It's just slowing down a bit. Are you going full force ahead, or are you slowing down slightly for a temporary reprieve, or at least lessening of the rate of change? That's all. And if you look at what happened in the UK under the Tories, you'll find that even under them, there has been an increase in the rate of migration, despite the fact that they campaigned and won an overwhelming majority on decreasing it. And of course, once the Labour got in, it became much worse, because even though it seems as though everything is terrible and falling apart, it can always get worse should you elect the left. At least the modern left. I don't think it was the same like 20, 30 years ago. But today, that's pretty much the division, right? You have left, which is absolutely bought and controlled by the powers that be. And then you have the rhinos on the right, the Republican name-only types, the uniparty types, that are also bought and controlled. And then you have the populist right. And honestly, you could say the populist left is also good, but honestly, it's almost non-existent, because the left is such a cult that they essentially expelled all the populist leftists and called them far right. So they have no place, essentially, as a political movement right now. Yeah, it's all about, do you think that the will of the people should be enacted, or the will of the institutions and the rich and powerful? I remember seeing a large-scale study on what the government actually does in the United States, and essentially they got to the conclusion that if the majority of the public supports a policy, that doesn't mean that it's actually going to be enacted. On the other hand, if a majority of the people in power, large corporations and rich people and higher-ranking bureaucrats wanted a certain policy, then it will be enacted even if it is overwhelmingly unpopular with the public. That is not a democracy. You are lying to us, and we are seeing through the veil. As more and more people awaken to this reality, I think you'll find one of two reactions. Either they will vote for people who are mavericks, that are outsiders and will shake up the system, like Donald Trump in the United States, or as in England, you will find that the majority of people are abandoning the game. They essentially refuse to participate in the fraud that is the election. So you would have the Labour Party winning an overwhelming majority with 20% of the vote. That is a failure. That is a resounding rejection of not democracy, but the current paradigm that has made a mockery of it, hollowed it of all meaning, and wearing it like some sort of flesh suit. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.